So hello, let's attempt to smock a garment. So this week I've been working on my Tilly and the Buttons Mabel top. Mabel is a dress and top pattern which has shirring around the sleeves and around the waistline. But I've taken a leaf out of Sew Amelia's book and I've decided to smock those sections instead of shirring it. Now, Sew Amelia is on YouTube. She does quite a lot of sewing for her kids. So she's done a bit of smocking before for her daughter. I think she might even have one of those pleater machines that gathers it up for you. I had to do that by hand. Now, I will say I did forget to film the sewing of the gathering stitches, or rather, I didn't forget to film it. For some reason, there's no footage of it, so I must have thought I'd pressed record and not actually pressed it. So yes, there'll be some footage here and there, but not the actual stitching of the gathering stitches. But you know how to sew gathering stitches. It's fine. You can work that one out. It's a running stitch. So I'll pick up bits and pieces as I've worked along the process of smocking this, and hopefully by the end of the video we'll have a garment with smocking that fits me. Let's see how I get on. Okay, so I'm going to mark up this gingham here, which is the Mabel from Tilly and the Buttons, and the top version. I can mark it up with some chalk so I know where to put my gathers in for some smocking. Pattern calls for shirring, but I've never sheared before, so I'm going to do smocking instead. Well, that, and I like the look of it. So yeah, I've got a board out on the floor because my craft room is in a state at the minute. So yeah, board on the floor, metre rule for a straight line, chalk, and yeah, let's get to it. Okay, so here is the progression of the smocking. So this is the peplum, and I've got in my gathering stitches, so I need to gather this fabric up. I've used the squares on the gingham to help me keep the stitches consistent and keep them in a straight line. Also used a contrast colour so I can see the gathering stitches when I put them out. These are just my chalk markings to show to make sure I'm on track as I work my way across the fabric, because this is very, very wide. The next stage, hopefully you can see the stitching on this because I have used blue against the blue gingham. The next stage is to do the smocking stitching. So I've used wave stitch. I've put two on top of each other, then I've left a gap and put another row of smocking at the bottom. Now this is my first smocked garment. I've already done tester smocking before, so hopefully that will be enough smocking to get the cinching in enough, because once you take out the orange gathering threads you end up with this. So that's the released sleeve with the effect that I've got from the smocking stitching that I have opted to do. So next step is to gather this up, get the smocking stitches on this, and then we can turn it into a garment. Okay, so I've decided to go with a different stitch selection for the peplum. So I'm starting with a bit untidy, but a cable stitch. Now part of the reason for that is on the bottom of the sleeves, when I took out the gathering on the first sleeve, it spread out quite far. I'm hoping that's going to gather it in enough when I sew up into the sleeve. But the peplum is significantly longer, so I don't want it to be losing a lot of its gathering when I take the gathering stitches out. So I'm hoping that the cable stitch will help keep things in a bit. I'm going to combine this with some other stitches as I go down, so I'm just going to look a couple up and remind myself how to do them, because I am not the most experienced at smocking. And yeah, we'll see how we get on. Okay, so I've worked slightly messy line of cable stitch there. Then I've worked Van Dyke stitch, which is a little bit like the wave stitch, but it's worked that way instead of that way, and everything's a little bit closer together. I've also done it shorter than I did the wave stitch on the sleeves, and then we've worked another row of cable stitch here. So when I was doing the previous smocking on the sleeves, I did 2 lots of wave stitch in about this area. I think it came like down to this next line of blue. Yeah, looking at it, it came down to the next line of blue. Then I skipped one of the lines of blue and did another line of wave stitches here. Now, if I do my, no, this is my debate at the minute. If I do a line of wave stitches here at the same point as I did it on the sleeves, then there's a bigger gap between the cable stitch and the wave stitches. But obviously the bottom would tie in nicely with the sleeves, and the overall depth would be exactly the same. And you could do the wave stitch one up, so the gap is the same, and we're just ever so slightly narrower on the band going around the waist, which is fine. And it just goes over the gathering stitches slightly differently. But I'm also debating putting in a line of cable stitch and then doing the cretin stitch to try another different stitch. The cretin stitch is an embroidery technique that used to be used on skirts in Crete, and it's been adapted to be used in smocking. It looks quite simple to work. So yeah, so I'm having a little bit of debate whether I want to end the waist smocking the same as I ended the sleeves to tie them in, or whether I want to try the cretin stitch to try a wider variety of stitches, given that I've already gone different here anyway. I mean, the colour's going to tie it in, so that's fine. It's the same thread, and this is DMC Cotton Pearly in a size 8 that I'm using here. So yes, I have decisions to make. I don't think I'll be too fussed if the bottom doesn't match, to be fair. If we just look at the opened up smocking on the sleeves, this is how the wave stitch has ended. I think the cretin stitch, it might look a little bit closer together. So yes, I'll either finish it like this or with the other sort of stitch, which is kind of like a cross stitch but longer. Well, you'll find out what I've decided in a bit when I have everything done. Okay, I'm a twit. I was going to get the Mabel top sewn up and included in the end of this video, but let me turn you around and show you something. Any guesses how many of these I cut out? Yeah, I only cut out one. Oops. So yes, I need to get another one of those cut out and smocked, and then I can sew it up. So, whoops. I will get that done and sewn up, but it's not going to be ready for this week's video. But these things happen. So whilst I get that sorted, let's take a look at the smocking that I've done so far. So that's the first bit of the peplum. So I need to do another one the same as that. That's the second sleeve. I will show you closer up the stitching in a minute for the peplum, because you've obviously already seen the sleeve one. So that's the first sleeve that's already opened. So let's look at the magic of opening up the smocking on this sleeve. So I'm going to take out this orange thread. I'm just deciding where to snip it. I think the best bet is going to be just pop in between the pleats, just catch that thread. Obviously I'm trying to make sure I don't catch the fabric. Let's turn that around. Make sure we've got the top as well. Or the cuff edge. Okay, so now we can pull out the gathering stitches. There's still a little bit to get at here. I'll work on that later, where it's been caught in the stitching. But it opens up, so it's got a bit of gathering and get this decorative edge. So let's take a look at what I've done on the first peplum. So we have cable stitch, Van Dyke stitch, cable stitch, then another cable stitch, and I went with a cretin stitch in the end at the bottom. So I will do the same on the other peplum once I've cut it out. So let's cut this one open and see how that's looking. Almost there. Okay, so that's got a bit more shoopiness in. Hopefully I've not done it too tight, but we'll find that out once I've sewn it all up. So the Van Dyke stitch I've worked much shorter than the wave stitch on these sleeves. So yes, I'm going to do another one of these. And by next week, when I do my what I've been working on this month video, this should be done. I think we might be able to call this a partial success. Partial in that I don't have a completed garment as of yet. It will get finished over the next week. I just need to cut out that second peplum and smock that up. What I will say is that whilst the smocking on the sleeves is pretty, it is very open. We'll see what it's like once it's sewn up into a sleeve. It may well work absolutely fine. But I think if I was to do this again, depending on how it turns out once it's all sewn up, because this could have the opposite problem, I would probably use something a little bit more along these lines. I mean, maybe not necessarily the same stitch combination, although I do quite like that. But just in terms of the height of the stitches, I've used half of the distance between the gathering stitches to create the Van Dyke stitch on this version, whereas on the sleeves I used the whole distance between the gathering stitches for a wave stitch, so it's a much looser finished look, which, like I say, may be fine. We'll see what it's like when I've actually finished the garment, which will be next week. So subscribe so you don't miss it. It'll be in my roundup of what I've been working on this month, because this has been a big part of it. Because smocking takes time when you're doing it by hand. The gathering stitches alone take a lot of time. So I'm a little bit miffed that I forgot to press record when I was stitching that. But there we go. Them's the breaks. But yeah, that'll be next week. And in the meantime, there's this video here that may keep you occupied whilst you're waiting. But until then, happy crafting and bye-bye for now.